This is Rob Tubber for Boxing Social here in Saudi Arabia. For the first time ever, I believe, this is a world exclusive on camera with Tom Dallas of Sauerland Promotions, matchmaker, man behind the scenes, fix-it extraordinaire. How are you, Tom?
I'm very well, thanks. Like you said, my debut for online interviews, so a little bit nervous, if I'm honest. No, we'll be all right. All good.
We'll try and keep it relatively light. You've done bits and pieces with us in written before, but as I said, we'll try and break you in gently with the video world. So yeah, as I just mentioned, you're part of Team Sauerland's team. Talk to me a little bit about how that got started.
Yeah, so I've been at Sauerland for 3 years now. It was always a dream of mine to go into boxing. First of all, I'm a lot younger than I look. Most people think I'm about 45. I'm actually only 25, believe it or not. I've always wanted to go into boxing since I was a little kid. My earliest memories were watching Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield with my parents, and when I was probably like 3 or 4 years old, and ever since I've been obsessed with the sport. So always wanted to get involved in boxing. Team Sauerland gave me that chance.
So you've always been a fan of the sport, but as I understand, you went to university. Was it always the plan to kind of go to university and maybe look for something in boxing, or did it kind of just happen?
Not really. I always liked the idea of going into boxing, always kind of dreamed of it, but never thought it would happen. So yeah, I went to university in Newcastle, and I started working for a couple small hall promoters up in Newcastle. Did that for a couple of years, like Phil Jeffries, who manages Lewis Ritson and some other guys. I was working with him, Steve Wraith, a guy called Lewis Pendleton. That was my way into boxing. After 2 years, I started pestering Nissa for a job, and he finally gave me the chance.
And was it matching that you were doing then, or was it different thing?
A bit of everything. So I was always interested in going into the matchmaking and guiding boxers' careers. That's what I was interested in. But I was doing everything on these small hall shows, whether booking flights, arenas, hotels, security, everything, press work, even social media, everything. I kind of wanted to get into the matchmaking, so I made that path for myself and got myself a matchmaker's license with the British board, and went from there.
I believe you're the youngest matchmaker in the UK. Is that right?
Yeah, I am. I think I am. I know I was by quite some distance when I first got my license. I was 21 when I first got my license, and I think the next youngest was 12 years older than me. I think the gap's shortened now, but I think I still am the youngest.
What makes a good matchmaker, and why did you go into matching? Every time somebody, kind of look through matchmakers over the years, there are often, with all due respect to people who are watching this, and maybe you are a matchmaker, there are often older gentlemen with a extensive background and history in the sport. But you were 21 years old and coming into the sport. What was it about matching that kind of attracted you to it, and what makes you good at it?
For me, it just takes a lot of research. Just you have to know everyone you have to. I would describe myself as a boxing nerd almost. I am constantly on YouTube watching journeymen, to be honest, most of the time, checking that they're suitable. Constantly on BoxRec to see who's out there, but I'd never make a fight purely off BoxRec, just BoxRec to see who's there, and then research on YouTube or wherever I can find some footage. But it's just all about research and just making sure you get it right. I think there's quite a lot of lazy matchmaking out there sometimes where you just do a very quick fix, but I like to spend a lot of time on each match, and a lot of research goes into it.
Do you have a specific process? Is there kind of a process that you like to follow per fight, or is it kind of each one a little bit different?
That's another thing I love about it. Every single fight is different. Sometimes you want your guy to be tested, sometimes you want to make them look good, sometimes you want them to face a certain style. So there's so many different factors, and it's always about finding the right balance. For example, within Team Sauerland, we've got some guys who are, like Filip Hrgovic, for example, who's boxing here, extensive amateur pedigree. So you want to move him very quickly. We've matched him very aggressively from his pro debut. Whereas we've got some guys who can also reach that same stage eventually, but they've had no amateur background and they need totally different guidance and development. So everything needs to be taken on merit, and there's so many factors which go into it.
Is it more enjoyable having somebody who you can push a little bit more aggressively?
Yeah, but to be honest, I do enjoy working with some of the guys who haven't had that pedigree, and it's even more enjoyable with them because it's more of a long term project, and it almost takes a lot more thought sometimes because you have to be a lot more careful sometimes. For example, with Hrgovic, to be honest, we'd fancy putting him in there with anyone, and he'd beat them because we're so confident in him. So, yeah.
So we're just distracted by Al Siesta playing the piano again here in Saudi. Interesting character. He'll be coming soon to play. Very interesting character.
With Al before, so I know how eccentric he is. Yeah.
What's it like working with Al? Obviously, our viewers, he's been on Boxing Social several times. What's it like working with him and making fights with him?
No, he's just like a boxing nut as well. So it's very nice to have I could speak for hours with Al just about boxing, and I think we have a kind of a similar philosophy on boxing and how fights should be made as well. So yeah, I was fun.
What do your parents make of all of this? I mean, so you've gone away to university. I mean, you graduated from university, and then you've taken a job in boxing. I mean, I know when I said to my mum, I mean, it's not the same, but obviously I'm out here covering fights and stuff. I don't quite understand it. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, well, they've been so supportive. Because I got a degree in economics, and kind of the standard thing would be going to finance or banking or whatever. But I said, no, I really want to push for this boxing thing. So when I was working on the small halls up in Newcastle, I wasn't making any money at all. It was just a way in, and I was doing that for well over a year after graduating. So I had no income or anything, and they actually supported me financially just so I could kind of follow my dreams or whatever. So they've been so supportive. So obviously now that it has finally worked out and I've got a career out of it, yeah, they're over the moon for me.
Any moments, you don't have to name specifics here, but are there any moments throughout your time as a matchmaker where you've maybe made a match that hasn't worked out? And
Yeah, you can't get it right every time. Yeah. Trying to think if there are any specifics which I can say. To be honest, I work for Sauerland. He's my boss, and I'll get in trouble more if I made a fight too easy rather than too tough. He likes all of our young guys to be tested. He likes to see good fights, but there's been times where I've made fights maybe a bit too easy and they've been over in a round or two, and he's been quite angry at me for that. But no, we just like to put good fights on. So if one of our guys does get beat sometimes, it's a good fight, but it hasn't happened too often.
You're here with Nissa. I'll be catching up with Nissa shortly too. But as I understand it, I mean, you're not just a matchmaker. You kind of, as I mentioned earlier on, you're a bit of a behind the scenes. If something needs fixing, you'll fix it. What kind of other responsibilities do you have throughout fight week?
Yeah, so matchmaking is my primary task, but I also do like the bout contracts, deal with medicals, anything sporting related really. So work with the governing bodies, push our guys up the rankings. If it wasn't for here, if it wasn't for this event, I'd probably be in Tokyo at the WBO convention pushing our guys up the rankings. So anything sporting related, I'm involved with.
Is there any other aspects of boxing that maybe you haven't tried yet that you'd like to go into? Maybe one day promoting or something like that?
I don't think so. No, I've seen the stress that promoters go under when it's their own money on the table, and no, I'm not sure that's for me, to be honest. So I'm happy to stay more. Although I'm doing this interview, I'm happy to stay more behind the scenes.
Well, we're glad to have you doing the interview. As I said, you have done a written piece before, previously with Craig Scott, who obviously does our writing side of things. Let's talk about why you're here, Filip Hrgovic. He's in fight with Eric Molina this week. Yeah. What was it about that fight that appealed to you from a matching point of view?
Well, we wanted a big name for this show. We were offered a list of 4 names, which he wasn't actually originally on, and some quite big names were on that list, and we said, yeah, absolutely. We wanted Michael Hunter for this, but I think understandably Michael Hunter didn't really see the value in boxing Hrgovic. So, yeah, like I said, with Filip, we just want him to be pushed as quick as possible. We feel like he could beat anyone. So Molina, a former 2-time world title challenger, gave Wilder a horrible fight, to be honest. We thought it was a very suitable opponent for him.
Talk about the main event.
Yeah.
We've came all the way out here to Saudi. Interesting settings for Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz. Break that fight down for me.
I'm pretty confident Joshua will do it this time. I mean, just like everybody, I was shocked at the first fight. Amazing performance from Ruiz, but I think Joshua just needs to be more disciplined this time. Although it wasn't a perfect performance for the first before the knockdown, I think he was just about controlling the fight. He hurt Ruiz, and then he just got so careless after that. I think if he's disciplined, maintains the distance, because Ruiz is very, very dangerous at close quarters, and he's a very effective counterpuncher at close quarters. But he's got slow feet, I think, and I think he actually struggles to close that distance. So if Joshua can stay disciplined, I think he'll do it.
Do you subscribe to I mean, you've kind of broken it down a little bit there, but do you subscribe to the theory that Ruiz's style is all wrong for Anthony Joshua, or do you not?
Potentially, yeah, because I think Joshua does step in quite heavy with his jab, for example, and when he steps in like that, that gives the opportunity to slip and counter. So yeah, absolutely, it could be just a bad style matchup for him, but that's where Joshua has to make the adjustments for this fight. It's just whether he's had the time and I mean, I know Joshua said he would never want any warm-up fights, but it seems like he's made a few changes to his, not to his, like with Angel Fernandez coming on, like maybe they could have done with a couple fights in the interim to work on these things. It's a very short amount of time to go straight into it.
Had you have been in charge, so to speak, of Anthony Joshua's matching, even considering the kind of situation with the titles and the politics surrounding that, would you have advised him to go straight into the rematch?
I think you have to be honest. Although it might have been beneficial to take a fight in the interim, I think for his credibility and for his inner self, he had to do it. He had to do it.
Just before I let you go, you mentioned it at the start of the interview, most people think you're 45. I don't think you're 45, Tom, but it's an issue that I have myself. I'm 29 going on 49. How do you find a break in the sport? I mean, we've spoken about this off camera, but it's a very fast-moving sport, both inside the ring and outside the ring. Are you able to find moments where you have your downtime? Are you able to find time for yourself?
No, there's no break at all. I don't think it's possible. And boxing is such a unique sport. It sucks you in, and yeah, you're either in completely or you're not. So if I'm not at an event, like I said, I'm researching. I'm in gyms seeing fighters. There's no break for me, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
You mentioned Lennox Lewis at the start of the interview. Was he kind of the inspiration for you? Was he your favourite fighter growing up, or do you have other fighters?
Not really. He was my earliest memory, but it was probably when Ricky Hatton was in his heyday. That's when I got even more obsessed with boxing. Obviously, for example, the Hatton Mayweather fight that just took it took it to the next level for me. So no, I'd say probably more Hatton over Lennox Lewis. But talking about Lennox Lewis, I think he's probably the greatest heavyweight of all time. I don't think he quite gets the credit he deserves sometimes. For me, he's the best.
Why do you think that is? Why don't you think he gets the credit? Do you think it's kind of history often always looks back on people more favourably. I mean, he's probably more appreciated now than he was when he was active anyway, but you don't feel quite enough appreciated.
Yeah, I don't, but perhaps he wasn't the character outside the ring that some others were. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but I really think he would have beaten any of them. I was having a big debate yesterday with Filip about who would win between Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis. He was absolutely fixed that it was going to be Ali. I thought it was be Lewis, but Filip actually agrees with me that Lennox Lewis is the best.
You said you think you'd back Joe Louis to beat Muhammad Ali. Why is that?
I think he's got a lot of similarities to what Ken Norton, but not a lot, just in the way that he throws his jab. Because with the Ken Norton fight against Ali, everyone said, Ali's jab would be way too much for him. Ken Norton was trained by Eddie Futch, and he had this amazing game plan just to actually jab with Ali. It's so simple: take his head off centre line and jab with him. And Joe Louis had the absolute textbook jab and 1-2. And I think he would have done kind of a similar thing to what Ken Norton did.
That's interesting. We, as you know, have our fantasy fight series. Maybe we'll have a Tom Dallas edition coming to Boxing Social soon. Okay, well, Tom Dallas, I did say would be about 15 minutes. It's literally 15 minutes on the dot now. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I hope you enjoyed this and it wasn't too torturous. No. And hopefully next time we'll do it again.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, Tom.
Cheers, thanks.